Yo, yo, what's up? What's up? What's up?
Oh my God, so loud. Wait,
Nice.
I can't even hear it.
What'd you say? Who needs help tonight? Let's go.
Right. I'm going to share.
Come on. How we doing on this
Hello,
wonderful
everybody.
Wednesday grind, baby? Let's go. Y'all got me fired up tonight. I am in a mood. I am in rare form. Somebody gonna get woke tonight.
Hey, Elkie. Elkie's there. Elkie's awesome.
What's
She's
up,
there.
Elkie? Queen Elkie in the house.
Let me share.
Not no more. Come on, let's go. I hope y'all fired up tonight. Get a pen. Get a paper. Let's go.
I'm starting to like Raymond's music now.
Get the logo off that.
When we do an event, we're gonna have this song because it has to be there. It has to be there. Like it's been there the whole time.
What happened?
When we do an event, we're gonna have. Huh?
If we do an event, I gotta get Brian Trejo. I reach out to him a lot. I haven't had a response yet, but I'm gonna keep reaching out to him because I would love to have him on an interview, or definitely have him come to Maryland, DC to do a show.
Well,
I know he does a lot of West Coast stuff.
You know, I'm not staying behind.
Oh, man.
How's everybody doing tonight? We are in week 4 of.
Is it really week 4? See, so that confuses me. Is it really? How is it week 4 on the 20th? That would be the third week.
So today I looked at the calendar, and we are. Oh, yeah, it is week. It is. You're right. 1, 2, 3. We're entering week 4. We're entering week 4 right now.
We're finishing up week 3. Yeah, we're finishing up week 3. Don't be like putting that. Don't be putting that extra. You can't put extra dates on me. Listen.
The year started. The year started on the 1st. I mean, on Friday. So in 2 days, it's gonna be week 4.
Hey guys, can I? How many of you didn't know that the month starts on the 1st?
Did I say that? I meant to say the month started on Friday. On a Friday, therefore, on this Friday, we're going to start week 4. But you're right.
You guys know that the month started on the 1st?
It is week 3. It's week 3. It already feels like 6 weeks happened.
Were we? What are we even talking about? Anyways, guys, welcome to the Transformational Thought with Ray and Sarai. I am your co-host, Raymond, CEO, founder of Right Way Leadership Transformational Coaching, where I am here to motivate, inspire, but most importantly, the transformational process. Somebody asked me yesterday and caught me off guard what my superhero was. They said, "What is your superpower?" And I thought, so I got put on the spot. So this is what I said. I said, my superpower is to help take people's traumas, turn them into triumphs through kingdom living, leadership development, and the transformational growth process. That's powerful. So I think I just found my new mojo. How about you, little lady?
Well, what do you think is my superpower? I think I know what my superpower is, but I wonder
Introduce yourself.
Oh, okay. Well, hello, everybody.
Just let me introduce can you sing?
You know what we should do? I should introduce you. You should introduce me. Going forward. That's what we should do. But
we should edify each other.
Yes. What you guys think? I think that's what it should be. I think that's what it should be. Anyway, if this is the first, like I say it over and over. Don't you get tired of introducing yourself? I want to hear someone introduce me instead. But if this is the first time we meet, my name is Sarai. I am a transformational trauma therapist. And you may ask, why transformational? Why? Why? Because I love to help people transform their pain and their traumas and adversities and all the things you've been through and turn it into the thing that you stand on. Like some people say, turn your trauma into your triumph or repurpose your pain. I really believe in doing that because I think that our purpose is wrapped in our pain. That's just the way it gets delivered. That's not necessarily our gift because, like you were saying, I think my gift is to see your greatness, period. I think that's my gift. I hear you, I watch you, and I'm like, oh my God, you're so great at this, or you're so good at this. But that's not necessarily my purpose. I think my purpose is to help people transform their pain and give it new meaning that's empowering. But I think my gift is to be able to see what you can't see about yourself. Would you agree on that?
Yes, which is why we do transformational talk. Which I still have this. I still
Which
get
is
caught
why
up.
this is why we're hooked up together. That's why we're hooked up, like
So
because we both love
I still feel,
transformational stuff.
I don't know. I still am not completely sold on transformational talk. I don't know.
I love it. I
know you
love
do.
I like it. I think it's awesome. I think it's
It's
awesome.
you think it's old school? I don't want to be old school.
Awesome. I said awesome.
I was gonna say I gotta be new school. I can't be old school.
I don't know. What do you guys? Well, let's not get on that trip. So today, what are we talking about today, Mr. Raymond? Because tonight is Raymond's turn.
Ooh! I thought of a good one today, guys. Like
He
y'all
did,
should give
guys.
me a round of applause. So
And I think
today,
it's very. I think. I think it's really good for the beginning of the year.
look, today we're gonna talk about we're gonna break this down into 3 parts, right? And if you have any questions, go ahead and put your questions as we go, as we're talking, and we'll try to get to your questions, right?
Yep.
And for right now, whoever's tying in, because I can't see names. And you guys know how horrible I am with looking at comments. But today we're going to talk about what triggers you. We're going to talk about how to identify them, and then we're going to wrap it up with how to overcome them. So I know this is right. This is right on Sarai's like map right here because this is everything that she likes to touch on. But we're going to get into this, and I think this could be a powerful talk. I just believe that the Spirit's going to show up and it's going to identify something. Hopefully, some people tie in tonight because as we've progressed, I did a live this morning, and it was I didn't really have a title, but I kind of just got fired up because this is what I've been noticing. I've been noticing a lot of people they're struggling right now, and it's the 3rd week. We're wrapping up the 3rd week of January 2021, right? Now remember this. Everybody was so ready to get rid of 2020. And now we're in 2021 and people are struggling. People have anxieties to the highest. Depression is to the max. There was an inauguration today. Whatever you think about it, I really look. I heard a gentleman say today, he said, and now he's probably, I don't know, he might be 20 years older than me. And so he was talking about, no matter who is in office, I'm going to win. He said, I won when it was Clinton. I won when it was Bush. I won when it was Obama. And I won when it was Trump. And I'm going to win when it's Biden. Right? You see, and that's what we have to focus on. Right? But what I'm telling you is the things that I've been noticing the first 3 weeks is people are being triggered. People are allowing their triggers to keep them in a place of stagnicity, of disappointment, and not able to grow accordingly to what their goals are, what their vision is, what their dreams are. This is why New Year's resolutions are junk. This is why New Year's resolutions don't work. Because the first couple weeks into January, when things ain't going your way, you start to complain, you start to gripe, and you start to focus on the wrong things. And you allow the things that trigger you to overstimulate you to where you absolutely do nothing.
So, yep, I agree with all of that. I don't think it's necessarily that that New Year's resolutions are crap. I mean, first of all, I don't think we need a New Year's to make a resolution or to make a new goal, but it's not necessarily that they're crap. I think it's more that we don't plan. We it's what you were saying. Like we get easily distracted by the negative emotions, or let's call it the negative things that pop up, which are really just part of life, and we sort of tell ourselves that things are when if I pick this, it's supposed to be perfect. If it's really meant to be, it's supposed to like make its way easy, and it's supposed to be perfect and all these things. But that's a lie that we tell ourselves, and then we get disappointed when it doesn't work out that way, when in reality we got to work hard for things, and in reality things happen in our life. Things are going to happen in January, it's going to happen in February, it's going to happen in March, and things are unexpected. Life surprises us with good and bad stuff. It's not like, well, it's not like always bad things happen, because sometimes we don't plan for great things to happen, and then boom, I'll get a check on the mail and I'm like, oh, where did this come from? You know what I'm saying? Like you can't be so controlling that you want to be able to control every single outcome. We could plan things, but also expect that things will happen, and
Yeah.
that way we have more control over the things that happen, and the triggers that we experience won't be felt so devastatingly. And then I also think it's important to understand the difference between a trigger and a trauma trigger, because we're triggered every single day. That doesn't mean that we're having a trauma trigger. Like a trigger could be we're stuck in traffic and now we're triggered and we get, you guys have seen Raymond in the morning when he's upset at people.
I
He's
don't
upset
even
at
like
people on
where
the street.
I'm listening. Like you
We
were trying to see if I was listening. I was just sharing because I usually don't share.
Well,
And
I'm
what do
just
you
talking
mean
about
see me
Raymond
in the
getting
morning?
triggered in the morning. Well, if you guys see his lives in the morning, he's totally triggered. He's
What do
upset.
you
He's driving. He's mad. I'm just kidding. Look at him. I was just saying if you're paying attention. Obviously you are. But anyway, triggers could be like traffic. A trigger could be anything like that. But a trauma trigger removes you, like Raymond has told me before, like it puts you out of character. It makes you behave in ways that you normally wouldn't. You lose sight of time of where you're at. You lose sight of the person that's in front of you. You lose it wherever it is. So that's very, very different. And a trauma trigger is associated to some negative experience you had in the past. So Raymond said, like, let's talk about what's a big trigger for me now that we're saying that. Like, I think it's a trauma trigger for me. At my agency we work with a lot of kids, and a major trigger for me that I just can't take is hearing a baby or a little like an infant or like a toddler cry. Ooh, like I have to get out of the office. I can't even take it. I can't. If I'm in a restaurant and I hear it, it makes me extremely anxious. And I do know where that comes from, from things I heard in my childhood, and hearing my brother cry like that would. So I think that's a major trigger. Here in the office, they even make fun of me because I get so anxious that I literally have to run. Like I have to take off, or I want to like go get the baby and do something. And that's a trauma trigger. That isn't like a trigger of, oh, this is so annoying, I'm hearing a baby cry. Like I get trauma triggered. So it's important for us to be aware of what are our triggers that are normal, because normally we get all throughout the day we could get triggered by different things, and it doesn't have to be something negative. We could get triggered in a positive way. But a trauma trigger is different. So number one, I think it's good to identify, like you said, what are triggers. It's good to identify the difference between those two. Do you know what
So
your trauma
yeah.
triggers are, Raymond?
Well, I'm not even necessarily talking about my triggers. I'm just saying triggers because in the coaching industry, right? And what we do is trying to get people to identify. Like I think that's the key, even with me. So one of my triggers is I know this is going to sound crazy, but when people don't use common sense, like that is that. No, I'm serious.
No, I know
I'm
it's funny because
serious.
but that's not a trauma
It's
trigger. That's just a trigger.
No,
So it's
no,
good to,
I'm not even. But see, you went to the trauma side. I'm not even talking about the trauma side.
but it's
Like
good
I'm
to
just
know the
talking
difference.
about triggers. Period. But what I'm saying, it doesn't. But a trigger like that can affect your day. A trigger like that can really adjust your mood. You could go from a good mood to a frustrating mood when people don't use basic common sense skills, right? And it's because and I think it happens a lot at work is people don't they don't want to do anything extra than what they're paid to do. That's one of the biggest problems, and that triggers the hell out of me because I hear so many people complaining about like income. I hear so many people complaining about whatever it is, but they do as little as possible, right? And they don't use good common sense skills to do it either, which usually affects other people or the team in general. So that really triggers me. And I can get really like the old me wants to just like sometimes, you know?
So
It's
what about
something
that triggers you so bad? What about that triggers you so bad?
I think
What
it's
is
because it's knowing that what someone is doing isn't I'm trying to think of some incidents without really, because you never know who's watching. But but so it's when you're dealing with this is right. So somebody will send you an email, right? And they're 6 doors down, right? And they'll CC somebody, and it causes a massive ripple into the team. Instead of just coming down and asking you a question and getting the answer from you, instead it's the laziness. A lot of times the lack of common sense comes from one's laziness, right? They either don't want to exert more energy, or that's not their job, or they don't want to give an answer for it. So it's the little things. It's the little things. It's like, why would you do something like that when you could have just did it this way? So I
okay?
think that it pisses me off. It really pisses me off.
Well, you know what? I'm really happy that Raymond brought this up because we could analyze this a little bit. Look, so sometimes we make ourselves miserable with the shoulds, and I'm picking on Raymond, but it's all of us because I'm a lot like Raymond, and I get annoyed really quickly too. So I'm just gonna throw myself under the bus too. But sometimes that has to do with our own shoulds of you should come tell me in person. Why are you sending me an email? Why are you telling half the world? Why aren't you coming to me? And those are our shoulds. And then what happens with our shoulds is that we end up taking other people's choices personal. So then we get pissed off. Like you just said, oh, like you really expressed, I saw how it pisses you off. But that really has to do with us more than them. They like Jim Carrey says, like we gotta sort of learn to be observers and not take things personal. And so that's a big practice. That's like a major practice to not make ourselves
Well,
miserable. It's like what you just said is when we get triggered, it could actually spin off into pissing us off for the rest of the day. Do we really want that? Because somebody chose to not walk downstairs, and that type of thing will bother me a lot too. So things trigger me too in that way. But then the question there is, I have control over my day. I could decide in the morning, this is the way I want my day to be. And this is easier said than done, guys. I'm not a pro at this. It's easier said than, but if I want my day to turn out good and I know the outcome I want for my day, here comes 10 a.m., something like this happens. I have a choice. Am I going to let this piss me off? Am I going to let this, am I going to turn this into like, that's their problem that they decided to do that. Then we just observe and do the best we can. Does that make sense?
yeah, but I think we're getting off track a little bit. So
You're frozen. You're frozen like this.
we're gonna reel it. We're gonna reel it back in a little bit, right? So this is the thing, right? Is we want to identify with people what people are going through, right? So I told you what triggered me, especially as a team, right? As a team, communication needs to be open, right? I know everyone has a choice, but when you're working as a team, it's different, right? You got to communicate. It's an open communication and it's an open understanding amongst the team. That's how teams work. And if you can't do that, then you shouldn't be part of a team, right? There needs to be open communication, and we need to give people a way out. Like if this is not the way you want to work in that. But I think what triggers other people, like what are the triggers that happen in your life, right? So I want people to identify, right? When you come from an abusive relationship, right? When you come through maybe if you were come from a relationship where there was adultery, or your significant other maybe had an affair, right? And now you're in a new relationship. when the phone rings, is that a trigger? Is that something that sends you into depression or anxiety, or it overwhelms you because your brain starts to think because you remember from the last person? Is were you in an abusive relationship and that specific person wore a sort of cologne or a specific smell, and when you smell that, it brings and it triggers back these memories? Like, what are those things that
now you went back to trauma triggers. Those are trauma triggers.
That's where we're going. You messed me up.
Now you went back to trauma. Is that so there? That's why I was saying it's good to know the difference between the two, because a trauma trigger is indicates that you haven't healed from something. A trauma, you get what I'm saying? A trauma trigger is not the same as as the trigger you just described with the team. So it's good for people to know the difference between the two, because a trauma trigger could just overpower you, big time.
Okay.
Are you gonna keep going? Talk.
What?
Talk.
I don't know. You jumped in. I thought you had something good to say.
I just had to identify that that's a trauma trigger. That's what I was trying to identify.
We're talking to the people now. Thank you, teacher.
People need to know. Your first thing here is, what are triggers? What triggers you?
Okay. Keep going.
That's all I wanted to say, is because I want people out there to know the difference.
You threw my whole thought process off just to say that.
Is it my fault? Is it my fault that this is a conversation? This is a conversation.
All right.
But yeah, it's true. People, like, that was, you were saying about the shirts triggering you, and the smell and stuff like that. That was a very, very good way of identifying a trauma trigger, because it does affect your senses. What are you looking at?
Sorry, I was trying to read comments while you were yabbing.
Oh gosh, I'm just gonna stay quiet because you guys see how he acts. All right, go.
Hold on, I'm reading comments. Keep talking.
Well, people are laughing. All right, guys. So, excuse me. There are trauma triggers and the regular triggers of all day long, but there are trauma triggers which have to do, of course, they're related to a trauma you went through in the past. And you just gave an example of both of those things. At work, you getting triggered by your team member who does something that you don't particularly like as a trigger, and it just go against your values or your expectations. That's very different from getting triggered by a past pain, and then something in front of you reminds you of it, or even songs trigger us.
I don't think it's that much of a difference, to be honest with you. I really don't.
It's a big difference between the two. It's a real thing. It's a real thing. A trauma trigger is a real thing, and a regular.
I believe all
expectations.
I believe all triggers stem from some type of rooted cause,
but not necessarily a trauma.
No, but it's still, anything that's rooted can be some form of trauma.
I don't know. Getting cheated on, and then having, cheating causes PTSD. So getting cheated on really causes you PTSD, nightmares, flashbacks, all these. You have this, people who get cheated on end up talking about how much PTSD they've experienced after the fact. They can't get it out of their head, all this stuff. So what you were describing was cheating, and you actually described perfectly how you would get triggered by the phone ringing, because it triggers something in you because of what you went through. That is very different from a trigger because somebody's annoying you. Someone annoying you could be based off your values or your expectations of how things should be. So a phone ringing wouldn't trigger you if you didn't have that past experience of pain and trauma. You know what I mean? So there is a very big difference, and people need to know the difference between the two. Why are you looking all serious?
Well, I don't know.
You're the one that said it. You're the one that said the two things.
I got it. Where were we at? I'm so confused now. I got so thrown off track.
John Taylor says, I look for positive triggers to fuel my fire inside. Very good, because there are also positive triggers. Like, you could trigger yourself to change your mood by putting on a particular song. You can put over like the song that you put on before we start. That you're doing that on purpose to trigger you into a particular mood that you want to be in when we start talking. So that's very good, John. Like that's exactly right. Like you could actually use triggers to your benefit, and we could do those things. Like absolutely, we could change our physiology, we could change our focus, we could change what we say, and that'll trigger us to change what we're feeling. Raymond, what are you doing?
Huh? I'm trying to regroup my thoughts.
Oh my! I threw him off that bad, guys.
Yeah, like I have no idea which way I was going with this.
Okay, go. I thought we were having conversation.
It's yeah. So I guess the next part we talked about what are the triggers. I mean, I think there's tons of them, and I think you just have to kind of figure it out. And that's what we're going to talk about next. Is I can't even figure out what I'm doing now. Is how do we identify these triggers? So you talk about this.
Oh, which one? How do we begin to identify these triggers?
Yeah.
Well, okay. So I guess I'll talk. How do we begin to identify these triggers? I mean, we could plan. So we could plan for things are going to trigger us. Like if you're going into a conversation with someone and you've already experienced that person, then you could already know what that person might say or do that's going to trigger you, and you could prepare for that. You could also prepare for example, you could prepare for if you do get triggered in the conversation or in a thing. This is just one example. Then you could prepare for, if I get triggered, I'm going to feel it in my body, because that's where we feel it. We feel it inside of our body. I'm going to get out of the conversation before I say or do something I don't like. That's just one example. Let's say the examples that you gave about getting triggered by you're going out with a new girl, let's say, and the phone rings, and you've been with her for a few months, and you have feelings for her, let's say, and the phone rings. A way of preparing for that is knowing that it's your trigger, not necessarily attacking her for the phone ringing, because then that happens too. I'm sure you know about situations like that where then the person becomes overly jealous, and it's not even about the person. That person hasn't done anything wrong, but yet they're paying for what someone else did to you. Why are you like looking so busy?
Because your computer, like on my side, you keep freezing, and the microphone is like. Wah!
All right, let me look at people's comments. Matt says, I like the music therapy idea, works well for me. Yes, music changes my mood. Actually, music changes my mood, but it also like helps calm my mind. Like when I need to work on something and my brain is bouncing around like a ping pong ball, I always have to have like some music in the background that just, I don't know, distracts my mind from bouncing around, and then I could focus. Maybe that's an ADHD symptom of mine. I don't know if I'm starting to think that it could be it, but Laura, that's so true. Laura says Raymond looks triggered. He does. He does look triggered. Raymond looks. Raymond, come on, get back with it.
What? I don't know. What are we talking about?
Oh gosh. Okay, so how do we begin? How do you identify triggers, Raymond? Come on. How do you identify triggers? How do you begin to identify triggers?
Well, one thing I always teach people that I work with is I basically teach them to keep a journal with them. And I teach them when they start to feel anxious, or they start to feel like a panic, or they start to feel a specific way, to start writing down that moment, right? So I think the best way to identify is it when you're cooking? Is it when if you're getting dressed or changed in front of your significant other? Is there anxiety that happens because maybe they've talked to you a specific way? Is there something that your kids say that you kind of lash out at them? What was done in that moment? Was it something they did? Was it something they said? Was it something that didn't happen? So I say the easiest way, because it could be the shortest thing. It could be a word, it could be the way somebody looks at you. So I think the most important thing is sometimes we don't really know what triggers us if we don't know what triggers us. So once we start, I think keeping a journal with you and being able to write down how you feel in that moment, it's going to be hard because, when you get frustrated or anxious, or you start to feel kind of like a sorrow or a worry feeling, or you just get that real low, like that manic depressant feeling, or you start to get that rage, that anger, I think you have to write it down. I think you really have to know that moment, what's going on, what's surrounding you, what are you doing, what are you not doing, what do you hear, what do you not hear. And I tell you one thing, and a lot of people disagree with me. A lot of people disagree with me on this. Is so, I grew up listening to gangster rap. I grew up listening to gangster hip hop. And the one thing that I realized is when I turned my life around 6.5 years ago and I got into personal development, I had to put the music away. I couldn't listen to the cussing. I couldn't listen to the anger. I couldn't listen to the violence. I couldn't listen to, people bashing other people, because it triggered me. It triggered me and put me in a sour mood, or a frustrated mood, or a kind of like an aggressive mood. So I that's one thing that I learned, that the music I listened to triggered me. So if something bad happened, I immediately went to like Tupac, right? And when I would listen to it, I would start to get all revved up, right? So I realized that was probably triggering me down a downward spiral. So I don't listen. I took about $1,000 worth of audios, CDs, and discs, and I trashed them all, man. And I listen to just specific, anything that's edifying, glorifying, uplifting. That's what I listen to now. So we have to know what triggers us. We have to know. People listen to, say, heavy metal rock, and they think that it soothes them. They think that it makes them feel better, but really it's taking them backwards. It's taking them to a place where they used to escape life, right? And that's what they're doing. Many times people turn to music to escape. See, I like to listen to classical music or instrumental music because what it does is it helps me focus, right? Mm-hmm. And then like the music we listen to, like that music gets me hype, but it's edifying and it's glorifying and it's lifting people up, right? And I think there's a difference. And like I said, a lot of people will disagree with me about that, but I really do believe that a lot of that music that I used to listen to, that some people still, when they're feeling depressed, what's the first thing they do? They say, well, music helps me. No, what music does is music helps you hide. Music makes you, it helps you, that negative stuff, where you get that one song where it talks, where it's just kind of like, it speaks to your trauma. It speaks to your trauma. So you stay there rather than, move on from it. So that's kind of like, but not a lot of people like to give up their music because
sometimes music could keep you there in the trauma, and it could be hurtful because then you dwell on it, or it could give a voice to your trauma. It could give words to what you're feeling. Like, a lot of people don't know how to describe what they're feeling, or even identify even the emotion that they're feeling. They just feel overwhelmed, but they don't know why. They don't know it's because beneath the overwhelm, there's anger, there's I feel betrayed, I feel rejected, I feel abandoned, I feel sad, or I feel whatever it is. So some people don't know, never learned how to call what their emotions a name, and music, or the words in the music, gives a voice to what they're feeling. What's not good is when you dwell on it and it causes you to feel more painful of an emotion. And sometimes that is used in the way that you're saying, where you just sit there and dwell on it, or just amplify what you're feeling. And so it gives it a negative, like, it'll give you a negative experience from there. But I like what Michael says. Michael says one way to know when you are triggered is when your mood changes, and that's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. Like, it totally is when your mood changes. And when you see that something changed your mood, you could turn around and ask yourself, because our mood and our emotions come from our thoughts, which thoughts could be like the meaning that we give to things. So when you see your mood changing over something, then you could ask yourself, okay, what was I thinking about that thing that triggered me? Like, for example, the example that you gave a little while ago about the phone ringing and how that could be a trigger. So it's about having the awareness to go, okay, you know what? That phone just triggered me. And I know she's not doing nothing wrong or he's not doing anything wrong. So this is about me. And what meaning did I give to the phone ringing? And if you do like backwards engineering and you go start working your way backwards, you can realize that it's about you and that it's about your past experience with the person that hurt you. But not everyone's capable of doing that. Most people are just react, and they're stuck in this victim mode where they're just reacting. And in order to get out of that like victim mode, you have to take responsibility for yourself. And not everybody does that. Not everybody even knows that they could take responsibility for themselves. Some people feel I'm entitled to what I feel. This is what I feel. And like the world has to submit to it. And that's not really how life works. And everybody's at a different level with that. Like, so if you want to get out of victim mode, you take responsibility for yourself and you stop and you think and you question, did I just act appropriately? Did I just react to that did I react in a way that makes me feel good about myself? Do I feel proud about the way I just did that? And not everyone's there. I mean, would you agree that not everyone's at a place like that where
Well,
they're
I think
analyzing themselves?
everybody has their own truths. I think everybody has their own truths. So,
Yeah, that's true.
one thing that I've really learned is, I'm a faithful man. And I believe when you are a man of faith or a woman of faith, there's a certain way you portray yourself, you act. And then there's other people who claim to be very faithful, who you would see they don't really, they expose themselves a little bit. They talk a little bit, kind of like you wouldn't expect someone with a huge faith to have. But to them, that's normal because God still loves them, right? And I think somebody like me, and this is where the transformation process begins, because I believe that the transformation process is so much more than money. But some people think because they accumulate a lot of money through a business, through a company, or they start as an entrepreneur, they build a clothing line or a makeup line, right? That they made it. So, and they made it by maybe exposing their body. They made it maybe by selling themselves. They made it by but that's their reality. And me, that's not a transformation though. Just because you made it financially, you didn't you read a book, but are you implementing? Are you changing your interior that duplicates your exterior, right? So if we're not having an altercation inside of ourselves, right? Though between the world and us, that's where I believe that, I mean, I could definitely say like I had a transformation. I went from living in the world, being of the world, to finding my faith and understanding that in order to be different, I had to act different. I had to talk different. I had to walk different. And I had to do different things than the world was doing because that was no longer me. And I think many people, they don't want to do that, right? And you could see through their behavior, right? A lot of them don't get out of, and I'm not, I love everyone, but they go to nightclubs and they do this and they're like, oh, F that, F that mofo, or, heck with that person. Or, you hear your neighbor, call his kids, little bees or something like that. Right. And I think that's, they haven't dealt with their triggers. They haven't dealt with the things that trigger them, right? And I think that's the problem with everyone has a different reality and how they see it.
Well, I really like that whole description that you gave, because what you described is that which you don't even know that you just sort of helped me answer the question that Matt put out there. But what you did, you're an example of someone who, against all odds, decided to take responsibility for your life, and you decided, I can't act like this. I can't keep doing. You just listed a bunch of things that you decided that you can no longer do. So what? Even though some of those things may have given you the adrenaline rush and may have made you feel good, and it was like someone put ego driven, could have been ego driven and everything. So Matt's question is it bad? Is it bad to like the adrenaline rush you get from being triggered? It puts me in an overdrive physical and reverse mentality. I think it's a reverse mentality. So my answer to that, Matt, is it's not necessarily bad to enjoy it, because we really can't do anything about what we enjoy. We could enjoy very, very bad things, things that are not good for us. So it's about recognizing that we do enjoy it. And then step two is saying, I enjoy it. However, is this going to bring me the greatest benefit? Is this going to serve my highest good? Is this going to serve the highest good of the people around me? Is this something that I want in my life, even though I enjoy it? Because there's a lot of stuff I enjoy, but I can't have because, all of us, like right now, there's just so many things that we could all enjoy, but we choose to not engage in because it's not serving our highest good. So the real question there isn't like, is it bad or good if we like it? It's really about making a daily decision of engaging in things that are going to serve your highest good and are going to help you create a level of peace, and it's going to help you create the state that you need to be in to be your best self and deliver your greatness. I think it's more about that. And that's just really about maturity. That's about responsibility. It's about, and Raymond just gave his example, because you could have easily continued on doing whatever you wanted to do. And for you're saying being at the clubs, listening to certain music and doing certain things was not taking you down the right path. That doesn't mean that's what it is for other people, but for you, it wasn't working for you, even though it probably was pleasurable. But you're saying it wasn't good for me, so I made a decision in my life. And honestly, as Raymond and I are really great friends, and as much as I know you, Raymond, like, you made that decision, and it feels like, or it seems like, you just never turn back. Like you said, I'm making this decision, and boom, you did it. And it even costed you your marriage because your wife didn't go along with that, with the change that you wanted to create a better life for yourself. And that had to be super hard. But that's what when you transform, you have to make hard choices. You have to decide what's going to be in your greatest interest and what's going to be in your highest good. And sometimes that means letting people go. Sometimes that means changing everything about you, starting fresh.
You have to.
Yeah, you have to. You have to.
And that's so what you're saying is where I get, and I don't want to see, that's one of the things that triggers me is because I am so bold in my faith and my relationship with Christ. So when I read the word of God, right? Not for me. I read it as it is for everybody. So when I see someone live in a specific way and like claiming, Abba Father, I get that, like, it triggers me because it offends me, because but at the same time, I have to love my brother and sister, right? So I have to turn that trigger into understanding, right? Because everyone's on different levels, but I still have to like lead by example. And I still can't, like, there's one thing that I won't do is I won't do what everyone's doing. When I see people behaving and getting involved and starting to talk a specific way, you probably even notice, I will disengage. I'm not saying I never cuss, because I do. I slip up. I make mistakes. I must repent, and I come back to them. And you guys are like, oh, it's just a word. I get it. But the difference is that was the man that I used to be. And I don't want to identify myself with the man I used to be. So I'm always looking. Huh?
That makes complete sense.
Yeah, but people want to know why they stay like in like why tough situations always come. And people look at money and people look at wealth as if they have arrived, right? Or if someone's making it, but they still behave as a jerk, or they still behave as, a loose man or woman, and they still do things. So I like, what Matt was saying. The one thing I would say to Matt is is you have to find something. Like for me, you have to find something you're passionate about, and you have to turn your passion into to a profit. And you have to learn how to take your passion, your profit, and your potential, and you have to turn it into your purpose. Because I believe God wants us to live our purpose. And sometimes our gifts will make a way for our purpose. And sometimes our passions will supply us a profit to get our gifts to establish our purpose, if that makes sense. So when you're getting like that adrenaline rush, you need to learn to take that. Like, so for me, when I'm building a business and people are telling me no, and they're telling me, well, you only got an 8th grade education, and oh, your wife left you, and oh man, you lost your home, oh, your car got repoed, and who do you think you are? That stuff right there triggers me. But what it does is it triggers me to use them as fuel to my fire. So I use it to push me forward into the process so I can do more good rather than dwell on the bad. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, so that's true for you because you already decided of the kind of life you want. So that's step one, is decide. You purposely or not on purpose made a decision in your life and said, it ends now, it ends here, and this is what I want, and this is what I have to let go of in order to live this particular way. So not everyone has gotten to the point where they're able to do that. So that's definitely step one, is having clarity on the kind of life you want. Because if you have clarity on what you want, but yet you're this person over here who could never achieve this life because of your habits, behaviors, and all of that, then having clarity will make you turn around and look at yourself and go, "Ooh, okay, well, I want that, but like, okay, I want to be a bodybuilder, but I'm eating Doritos and Coke all day long. Okay, no, I'm not going to be a bodybuilder like that." You get what I'm saying? That's a very
You'd be
that's
a
just a
bodybuilder, just not the kind you want.
I mean, yeah, you're gonna build a different kind of body, but so that's the same thing with everything in life. Number one step is having the clarity of what it is that you want, then looking at yourself and asking yourself, okay, what are the things I need to do away with? And what are the things I need to learn? Because you need to learn a new mindset. Anytime you want to become something different than what you are, it's going to take a different mindset and it's going to take new skills to be able to achieve that. So whenever you decide, I want whatever it is that I want to be an entrepreneur, boom. Okay, well, then what how does an entrepreneur need to think, and what skill sets does an entrepreneur need to be an entrepreneur? Or I want to be a husband and I want to be the best husband. Okay, well, what kind of mindset does a husband that's going to be a great husband need to have, and what skill sets does he need to have in order to, so it's always those things. So whatever it is that you want, you have to have clarity. And then I saw that Matt also put, oh, I'm a 40-year-old, wait, I'm a 17-year-old trapped in a 41-year-old mind. And that happens to all of us. We're usually trapped in the place where we stop growing. And if that's the case, and you have the awareness of that right now at 41, you just said it. Therefore, you have the awareness of it that maybe you didn't have at some point. That gives you power. That gives you the power to go, okay, I want to or don't want to be a 17-year-old. What is it that you want? Do you want to continue to be a 17-year-old? Then that's great. You are right on track. But if you're a 41-year-old who doesn't want to be like a 17-year-old, then that's where you could go back and reparent yourself. You could go back and you could just think of yourself like, okay, what would a parent do? Because a 17-year-old lacks discipline. A 17-year-old still needs some type of parenting to happen to put you on track. But when we're older, we're able to do that for ourselves. We're able to do like the whole thing I'm telling you right now. We're able to go, okay, this is what I want. Who do I need to become to be there? And I don't want to be the person I was, which by the way, we're not. We're never the persons we were. We just have remnants of it and we continue to live in that space, but we're still not that person because
We try, but many, the problem is many people fail because many people try. This is just the way God made me. Can't teach an old dog new tricks. It's just the way I am. Why should I change? So we try to hold on to the limits that we put on ourselves, right? So it's and what you're saying so good. So like me, what I try to say is I'm 41 too, right? I'm 41. And now it's like, you know what, God willing, I got another 40 years ahead of me to run after this thing with all I got, to spend the next 40 years building my business, you know, establishing legacies, breaking generational curses, you know, helping people to overcome, right? And we all are on different journeys, which is why you can't compare your first chapter to somebody else's 10th chapter. But when somebody else with a 10th chapter is explaining, serving, and helping you how you can eliminate and you can build your chapters a little bit faster, and people are unwilling to listen or unwilling to learn or unwilling to implement. I talked about that this morning. One of the issues I have is when I'm working with people, right? And and I'm investing so much of my time, which I love serving. The difference is when you start to invest your hard-earned time that you could be spending with somebody who really needs it, we tend to spend it on people who are really consuming our time and not investing into their own time, right? So we got to be careful with how we offer our time. We got to be careful with who we give our time to. Though, see, serving people who truly need it is one thing, but serving people who don't really want to do the work necessary that's where we start to waste time. That's where we got to be careful of, right? So when I'm coaching, and this whole thing tonight, you know, when we're talking about identifying triggers, overcoming triggers, right? This is all based on how coaching, like how I coach, maybe how you coach. It's more, this talk was supposed to be more on like a coaching, like taking you through a process to get you an aha moment. So first we got to be able to identify what's triggering us. We got to know that there are triggers. We got to identify what's triggering us. We got to be able to identify them. And then we got to start to recognize them, right? Everything that is worthwhile takes time. It might take you 6 months to understand how to control what triggers you. It might take you 6 months to be able to continuously write down what bothers you. Maybe you got 50 different things that trigger you, because I know I did. Maybe you have to, and it's going to take time to limit those things. But when when we're working with people and we're going through a coaching process and people come to me, I'm helping people if they have an issue, and I'm going to be telling them. I remember I was watching an infomercial. I don't know if you call it an infomercial, but it was like a YouTube commercial, and it was Grant Cardone, and he was getting ready to do his 10X conference, and he was walking through Vegas, and there was like a 25-year-old kid who was on the lawn chair by the pool with a bottle of liquor in his hand. And Grant stopped and he said, "Man, how old are you, man?" He said, "I'm 25. And Grant was like, "What are you doing out here? Like, man, you know, go get successful, go build your dream, then have a good time." See, but we get it backwards. We want to have a good time before we build the dream. We want to have a good time before we do the work. We want to have a good time, right? There's an old saying that says, "Do the hard work now so your life will get easier in the end." But most people do the easy stuff now, which is so-called easy, which gets harder in the end. No financial freedom, no good relationships, struggling with addiction, depression, PTSD, and all this other stuff that maybe you couldn't have controlled at younger age. But if we take care of those hard things now, if we identify these things now, and we start to find solutions and implement the right things. If I'm a drinker, don't go to a club, right? If I have a problem with women, stay away from women. Like but these are the things that we are unwilling to do, because those things, they help like suffocate what triggers us, suffocate the trauma, suffocate, right? I hope that makes sense. I went on a kind of tangent.
Well, I think you triggered Laura. Let's start with that one. And then Matt said, "That's why I'm a 17-year-old and a 41-year-old mind, because I did it backwards." So the good thing is, Matt, that 41 is young, and you're looking at it right now like that's part of maybe what you're going to teach other people. Who knows? I mean, we all go through stuff for a purpose. And That's where you're at. So what are you going to do now with that? Now that you're 41 years old and you see that we've all made mistakes, we all look back and realize, oh man, I did this, and and we could judge it and look at it, but we judge it to know what we want to do different. You don't need to judge it to beat yourself up for it. And I'm not saying you're doing that. I'm just saying don't look back to judge it, to beat yourself up for it, because beating yourself up for it and making yourself feel guilty about stuff isn't going to be the empowering type of emotion that's going to move you forward. So what's going to help you move forward is going to be for you to look at it, look at what you don't want to do, think about what you could have done differently and what you could do differently, and start doing those things differently, because there's still plenty of time for you to start writing different chapters of your life completely different from the past chapters. And I'm pretty sure that in the past chapters, there are things that you did correct, and there's things you want to bring with you. So maybe this is a very good time in your life for you to look at, like, just sort of analyze things and figure out what it is you want. Again, it sounds to me like you're at a stage where you're trying to figure out what it is that you want, and just figure out the quickest path to that and create that path, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and think about this, Matt. I always say this. If only I knew back then what I know now, man, how powerful could that be? Whew, man, things would be way, way, way different. I can tell you right now, I definitely wouldn't be living in Maryland. I'd be living on an island somewhere. Huh?
You're frozen. And yeah, that's true. And also, like there's a reason why we did the things we did at the time that we did. And there's a reason why you're not doing it right now. Like, we have to literally become a particular types of people to survive whatever place we're at, and except for now we have the power. Like right now, what I'm hearing is that we have the power right now, with even by just being here with us and hearing this information. We do this to empower you. We do this to empower you to know that you have the power within you to today look at what you want and decide what you have to do and who you have to be to get those things. That's an empowering thing that we're giving you. We're not telling you beat yourself up. We're not saying, oh, you messed up and, just give up on your life. My message, and I know Raymond's message, is completely different, which is, you know what? Pick up where you're at and start moving with what you have towards your dreams. Because we both believe in dreams. We both believe in possibilities. We both believe that if you're here, you're still breathing, you're still kicking, you're still typing here, that means that you still have a chance, and you still have a chance to swing at those things that you always wanted, like we have, like we've done it.
Yeah, and
go ahead.
No, I was just. Oh, you've been freezing all night too. I don't know. Maybe it's just my internet that's making. I have no idea. But see, that's why I hate saying. I break my train of thought. Oh, I was gonna say, a lot of times you'll hear people say, "Just pick yourself up by the bootstraps," and I do believe that to a certain point. But I want everyone to understand, right? I want everyone to understand that there is a molding process. There's a molding process, and you're going to have to pick yourself up quite a few times. If so, for me, being a crummy, hurtful, disgusting, like destructive man that I was, teenager and young man that I was, right? There was a lot of growing pains. So yes, I picked myself up by the bootstraps, but it wasn't until years later, it wasn't until 13 years of sobriety that really I had an awakening, that God woke me up and shook me to the core, right? So 13 years in sobriety, I still live like a dry drunk. I just removed the alcohol. I was still depressed. I was still angry. I was still miserable. I was still pissed off. I still hated the world. I still didn't like people, right? So 13 years in sobriety. And that's why I tell so many people, like, sobriety is great, but don't allow the rooms to control you. Learn to grow. Learn to read. Learn to find. You got to find a mentor. You can look at YouTube videos, but when you have a man, or if you're a woman in your life that is somebody who's been through crap, who's walked through crap, and who has come out on the other side. That's what's powerful, because you have somebody who isn't going to sugarcoat things for you, but they're going to respect you at the same time. They're not going to beat you down. They're going to make it aware of you as they lift you up. They're going to have you recognize it. But most people, so many people in the transformational process always think somebody's attacking them. They always think somebody's digging at them. They always think, no, this is what we all had to go through. If you want to go to where you want to go, when you want to go to that dream, when you want to be a new creation, when you want to change your life, there is a molding period, and you're going to get kicked the hell out of in the process. So that's why you got to armor up. You got to know emotionally, physically, and spiritually, you got to get your ish together. I said ish, right? You got to get it together, because if you don't get it together, somebody is going to walk on you, and you're going to allow it. So you got to understand that the people who care about you, the people who love you, they're not going to pat you on the head and say, poor baby, I understand. No, they're going to say, look, you've been here before. You've been through this. Let's go. Let's get it. Pick it back up. Let's get going. You can do this. Follow me. See, they're not going to leave you alone. But at the same time, there becomes a point. Right? My mentor, right? I had to finally tell my mentor, stop being so damn nice to me. Like, come on, give me some tough love. And you know what he told me? You just ain't ready for that yet. And I'm like, I want to be ready. I was so ready.
Right? And then he's got me being tough all the time. And he's like, I don't even want to talk to you.
Look, I just think this. So we're going to wrap this up, but we're going to talk about what are some things we can do to overcome them. You know, face your fears, face your doubts, face your worries. The greatest thing that we can do is face them. Understand, Michael Livingston talked about it earlier, is if you don't meditate, learn how to meditate. If you don't pray, learn how to pray. If you don't study, learn how to study. If you don't know how to be by yourself, learn how to be by yourself. Know thyself. When you can start to know thyself, you'll start to learn what triggers you. You'll start to identify it, and then you'll start to figure out how you can overcome it. So when that trigger happens, you identified it. Now you know how to fight it. Now you know how to put the fire out. Now you can put it down, and you could wash it away. So now you got the water to take out the fire, and or vice versa, whatever it is. But I want you guys to understand this, right? If you don't do nothing, nothing will happen. You'll stay the same. Another year will pass. You'll be the exact same person, only a year older, maybe a little bit more frustrated.
Which means you're not the same. You're actually not the same. You're just getting worse. If you do nothing, you get worse. You don't even stay the same.
Yeah, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt at this point.
Cool. You get worse, guys. You get worse.
All right. Well, all right. You wrap it up.
Okay. I mean, I wasn't ready to wrap anything up, but
well, we're an hour into it. We're an hour into it.
Yeah, we gotta wrap it up. So
I got
guys,
stuff to do.
Oh wow. Somebody's important. Listen, guys, I'm so happy that you guys were here tonight. I felt like it was a powerful conversation. And I feel like the right people needed to be here, needed to hear all this. And I just want to say, this last thing I just said to John was, be authentic, be true with yourself. I think that's the biggest gift that you could really give yourself, is just being true to yourself as to where you are, what it is that you really want, what it is that you really need to do. And like, there's no time to waste. As Raymond was saying at the end, and then I added that you really, if you're staying the same and you're not growing and you're not doing anything to grow and change, you're actually decaying. There's no such thing as being in the middle. You're decaying. Either you're getting better or you're decaying. There's no middle ground. So why not choose to grow and get better, even if you feel like you're at the bottom? If you're at the bottom, then you could choose to live a better life. You could choose to do things differently and start with something. Start with something today. Begin with something. If you haven't already, figure out what it is that you want to work on. Figure out in which ways do you want to grow. Figure out stuff like that. and write it
And I
down.
did see Laura said something earlier. I don't remember because I'm horrible at looking at comments and trying to multitask, which is why I get thrown off. But she said something about, she's at a point where she's just taking baby steps. And man, that's how I started. It took me 2 years. It was a 2-year process. But the key was in that 2-year process is every day I did something.
But
Every day I did something.
and maybe baby steps. I think baby steps are the best way to do it. Like I break things down into the smallest pieces, because if I don't break things down in the smallest pieces, I won't be able to do anything. So
Yeah.
I think baby steps are actually the right way to do things. Like if you have a year-long goal that seems insurmountable, well, break it down into tiny pieces. You have, I don't know how many days are in a year. I don't know that number, 300 and something, I think it is. Whatever that number is. I know it's 52 weeks, and I know it's 52 weeks. So you have 52 weeks. You can break it down into 52 pieces and just stack one on top of the other. Like, you have these options. It's better than doing nothing. It's better than
Well,
feeling
that's
sorry
the
for
key,
yourself.
though, is 1 year, 12 months. So you have a 1-year goal. You have 12 months. You have 4 weeks a month. You have 365 days. And the crazy thing is you're going to have days that smack you in the face, throw you off, right? The problem is you can't stay there. You can't stay in that day. So many people, like Groundhog Day, they allow one thing and they repeat that day over and over and over again. When you just got to get to a point where that day it sucked, something tragic happened. Go to bed, pray that you're able to sleep, pray that you're able to rest, and then wake up and you get to start all over again, right? But you got to have a plan. You can't spend this is the crazy thing. I know we got to go. I was just listening to a guy and he was talking about Ed Milet. If you don't know Ed Milet, he's very powerful in the networking industries, created a huge business. They got a podcast. And he was saying why most people, right, they live one day in 24 hours. He says, I live 3 days in a 24-hour period. And he says, I live them in 6-hour increments. So he says, I do the work in a 6-hour day that most people take 24 hours to do. Right? Now, I'm not saying that you got to do that. But what I'm saying is that's why the successful people are successful people. That's why people who have great marriages have great marriages. They put time and emphasis on what matters. And if you want to
go ahead. I don't want to interrupt.
No, go ahead. I'm done.
The other side of Ed Milet's story is that he does that because of the regrets he has of all the time he wasted doing things he shouldn't have. He felt like he should have been doing. He felt like he wasted many years of his life. So now he's trying to like make up for lost time. So
well, most of us, how many of us have wasted many years? I guarantee you, every one of us on here could talk about the years we wasted. But see, like I look at Michael, and if you look at Michael Livingston, you know what he's doing? He's out there serving. He's out there, through the whole pandemic. I see him setting up, man, and he's praying for people, and he's delivering food, and he's doing but that's what we can do. Like, look. I try to tell people.
Michael sends me messages all the time, and his messages are so awesome. I love his messages. He sends me prayers. Like, thank you for that prayer. I needed to hear that. That was awesome.
Yeah. So we're Laura said I'm a baby. She's 50. That's, you know what? But think about this. Think about it. Even if I always say 80, I don't know why I always say 80. Like, maybe we'll all live to be 100, right? But I always say, I got 40 years left, right? So if we all live to 80, think about how many years you have, right? And maybe some of you don't have as many years. So we need to put some urgency on it. We need to put some urgency on what we do. Yeah, we really do. We need to stop letting the stupid things trigger us. We need to stop focusing on things that ain't getting us any closer to the results that we want. We really got to stop focusing on the crap that don't matter, the people that don't have no place in our life, and the things that we used to do. We don't do them no more. Let's accept it. Let's appreciate it and let's move on. And let's go get this done. Let's go out here and start to put a plan together so that we can start to live the life that each one of us have always desired to live, even if it's for 20 years, even if it's for 30 years, even if it's, God willing, one more year. Let's start to do it now, because if we can get aligned with what God wants from us, it can be the best year of our life.
Mm-hmm. And with that, we're done because that was an excellent ending. See you guys on Sunday, Laura and Matt, and whoever else is on here. See you guys Sunday. Bye.
Bye, guys.
All right, I gotta go.